Hi, VAP-Chan here with another random comic review. Vap, there's something you should know. Huh? There's already a guy who does random comic reviews. His name's Gojatron. Check him out, viewers. Well, shit. The show's called, Vap Talks Comics now, I guess. But the premise is the same. I pick a random issue of a comic and I talk about it. This episode's comic is Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane, issue 75 from 1967. This series is famously completely fucking nuts, so let's get into it. So, this issue is about Lois Lane becoming a dictator and forcing Superman to kill people for her. Like I said, completely fucking nuts. The inside cover's an advert as usual. This time around, it's for something kids might actually want. Badass model planes. A Spitfire, a Flying Tiger, and a Messerschmitt. You know, I've been thinking of getting into model building, but...
Vap, you're going off topic. That guy who thinks he's Oscar Wilde hates when you do that.
Oh yeah.
And don't forget, I've got a special announcement to make at the end of the episode.
All the old Superman comics, and most old superhero comics in general, open on a splash panel showing a preview of the story to come. This one's pretty well done, with a powerless Superman being menaced by a sadistic Lois's armed guards. One question, though. Why is her hairstyle here different from the one on the cover?
Well, later on in the comic, her hair is drawn the same as on the cover. I think Schaffenberger gave Lois her normal hairstyle for the splash panel, so that the slower kids could tell it was Lois at a glance and not like Margot from Apartment 3G.
Maybe. Holy shit, I thought that said Kahattenberger. The story begins with Superman breaking into a resort's indoor pool to kidnap Lois Lane. Normies and feminists will hate this, as it's a transparent excuse to draw hot babes in swimsuits. It turns out Superman is amnesic, and only kidnapped Lois because he found a picture of her in the pocket of his cape? And thought she'd know his identity. Lois lies to Superman, telling him that he's a super criminal, and that she's his partner in crime. Of course, it turns out Lois is actually being forced to do this by the Maestro, a Leopold Stokowski caricature with a magic mind control baton. And for good measure, music puns, he's kidnapped Lois's sister, Lucy. The use of mind control was a common theme in the era of the Comics Code Authority. You see, the code didn't allow criminals to be portrayed in a positive light, which no comics actually did before the code, but that's a subject for another day, and all villains had to be punished at the end of the story. But let's say you wanted to do a story where a character turns to crime for a sympathetic reason. Well, as a loophole, all you had to do was say they were under mind control or an amnesiac while committing the crimes, so it wasn't actually their fault. That way, you could have, say, Lois as a dictator and Superman as a killer, without either of them being shipped off to prison by the end of the story. Spoiler alert, I guess. Lois sends Superman to the Latin American country of Santoro, which normies will hate for being too stereotypical, to meet with their dictator, El Tigre, and actually seems to be cognizant of what she's doing. I guess the mind control loophole still works even if it's not total mind control. It's pretty funny that the bottom panel seems to be treating the fact that El Tigre is Lois like it's some kind of twist, and like the cover and splash page haven't already revealed that it's her. Also pretty funny that the Comics Code allowed depictions of bulls with swords shoved into their backs. Whoa, the Aurora monster models. If you're into old toys at all, you've seen these. You'll notice that even by 1967, the Universal monsters were being marketed basically as comedic figures. The lines in the ad copy about Mr. Hyde changing for dinner, the Phantom of the Opera singing Stranglers in the Night, King Kong doing the monkey. A lot of people give Mel Brooks all the credit for turning the Universal monsters into jokes with Young Frankenstein, but stuff like this shows they were being played for camp value years earlier. These are really good model kits, by the way, and they're still being sold. You know, I've been thinking about getting into model building, but...
Vap, no.
Back in the actual comic, Lois, El Tigre, waits for Superman to show up as the bullfight she's watching takes a turn in the bull's favor. Fortunately, or unfortunately if you're a fucking PETA member or some shit like that, Superman shows up to rescue the hapless bullfighter. Whoa, Schaffenberger's really good at drawing bulls. Like, really fucking good. They're so solidly drawn, and it doesn't look like he had to use photo reference. I think this is the panel of the issue. El Tigre announces Superman's arrival, like everyone didn't already see he was there. and Superman immediately realizes El Tigre is Lois. Check out that huge Popeye chin on Lois, by the way. Lois tells Superman she had him sent to Santoro to protect her from her enemies, but just then, Lois is presented with a giant statue of herself as a gift from her adoring subjects. It looks like there was some disconnect here between the artist and the colorist, as the statue, rather than being white or gray, is fully colored, making it just look like a giant Lois. But the statue is, in reality, part of a terrorist plot and filled with explosives. At the last second, Superman flies the statue into space where it explodes above Earth. Superman explains to Lois that he superheard a switch in the toenail of the statue being set off. God, can you imagine a concept that blatantly goofy being used in a modern Superman comic? The present is a mistake! And used his X-ray vision to see the bomb inside. Does Superman even have X-ray vision in the new ones? Or is that one of his powers they threw out in the 70s to make him more adult, aka fucking boring and dismal? Vargas, the sculptor of the statue, is apprehended, and he and his family are sentenced to death by firing squad. Superman doesn't seem to realize that Vargas wasn't acting alone, so he can superhear a switch being set off, but not superhear Vargas's terrorist accomplices talking at presumably a normal volume. Vargas is a cool name. Vargas. Superman takes Lois to her headquarters to meet with the Maestro. When they arrive, Superman's amnesia has begun to wear off, and he wonders if he's really the super criminal Lois claims he is. Lois tries to assuage his doubts, but once inside the headquarters, she tells the Maestro she won't go through with the rest of his plan. The Maestro threatens her with something, but that something will have to wait because it's insincere PSA time. A lot of the old DC comics had PSAs like this as basically a way to look socially conscious and moral without actually having to do anything, which is, I suppose, better than how modern comics try to do that.
Vappy, you don't even have to go that recent to find some super annoying moralizing comics. Ever hear of Green Lantern, Green Arrow?
Hey, I inexplicably like those! Next page is the obligatory filler gag comic, and an ad for Teen Titans. The real one, none of that Teen Titans Go bullshit. The one word is X, the other is Y. Okay, what are they? Joke was a common one at the time, and even into my own childhood. I've seen 5 or 6 different joke books that all have variants of this joke, all using different slang from different eras. When I first heard this joke as a kid, the 2 words were cool and gross. In this rendition, they're kicky and raunchy. It's weird to think that raunchy was some shocking new slang term in 1967, but I suppose kids in 2023 would say the same about cool and gross. The Teen Titans issue they're advertising below the filler comic looks pretty cool. Real product of the biker craze of the time. Back in the actual story, the Maestro reminds Lois that he's holding Lucy hostage, and shows her he also has her parents. He tortures the 3 with his mind control powers, forcibly changing their emotions. Whoa, Lois's depressed dad looks just like Henry Kissinger! Well, like if Kissinger ever felt remorse over all the people he killed. And he even tortures Vargas! Vargas, no! Torture Lois's family all you want, but leave Vargas alone. I really like saying his name. Seeing her family get tortured makes Lois give in to the Maestro's demands. He takes her into the dungeons of the headquarters, where he shows her the corpse of the original Tigre. Okay, I know the Maestro says he put her in suspended animation, but they never show her being woken up or freed after this, which makes me think the suspended animation line was added in to make the story Comics Code compliant. And then the Maestro shows Lois the giant gemstone he's created, which he wants Superman to examine for flaws with his X-ray vision. Lois makes a joke about rings as prizes in Cracker Jack boxes. Before Cracker Jack cheaped out and started putting in stickers and the fold this paper to make George Washington's face thing as the prize, they actually used to put in pretty good stuff. I remember being really young and getting a little figurine of the sailor that had a suction cup on his feet so you could stick him on the table and flick him back and forth, I guess. The Maestro tells Lois that once Superman X-rays the gemstone, Lois's family will be set free. Lois is suspicious of his promises and pretends to go get Superman, while actually eavesdropping from several feet away. Lois's soldiers, well, I guess they're really the Maestro's soldiers, are pissed off that Superman had to come all this way just to X-ray a jewel, and that's when the Maestro shows what the gemstone does when hit by X-rays. Absolutely fucking nothing, because the X-ray machine got wet from being in a cave. The Maestro wipes the lens off, and while Lois is listening in, the Maestro successfully fires up the X-ray machine, revealing that the gemstone is actually some kind of component in a superweapon. Remember, this was published during the Cold War, when everyone was scared shitless of getting nuked to death. Just like now! The Maestro gloats about how the gemstone's powers will be even stronger when activated by Superman's X-ray vision, and Lois is horrified. We then skip forward in time to the Maestro ordering Lois to personally execute Vargas and his family. Seems like a little bit's missing between those two panels. The panel of the Vargases being marched out of their cell at gunpoint is a pretty harrowing image to put in a comic aimed at presumably 10-year-old girls. This was marketed at little girls, right? Like in 1967, any boy who read a comic starring Lois Lane would probably get the shit kicked out of him by his peers. Even if that comic is actually about Lois Lane as a dictator and shows Superman fucking shooting an innocent man's entire family? Holy crap. Yep, Lois ends up not having to kill Vargas and family because she gets Superman to do it for her. Now, this of course ends up not being what it looks like, but can you imagine if that bottom panel was taken out of context and spread around like people do with screenshots of Donald Duck dressed as a Nazi in Der Fuhrer's face? Actually, please do that, viewers. It'd be really funny. Superman regrets killing Vargas, and the Maestro silently gloats about making Superman break his code against killing. Does Superman still have a code against killing in the new ones? Not that killing his enemies wouldn't save a lot of lives, but I remember there being a huge uproar when he, snapped General Zod's neck in one of the shitty new movies. I like how Superman is goofily bending the rifle in the second panel, by the way. It's very cartoony, and cartooniness is sorely lacking in basically every superhero comic published after 1985. Well, except for Rob Liefeld's stuff, but the critics crucified him for not understanding anatomy. A messenger, who looks eerily similar to the man in the yellow hat, rides in to warn the Maestro that the rebel army is attacking, and the gemstone is wheeled out for Superman to X-ray. Superman fires his X-ray vision into the gemstone and burns the rebel soldiers alive. Holy shit. Look at that guy caught directly in the explosion, flailing around in agony. Once again, this turns out to not be what it looks like, but imagine being a 10-year-old girl in 1967 and seeing this. Here's an ad for one of the 80-page giant Batman comics. Yep, 80 pages for a quarter. With modern comics, you're lucky to get 25 pages for $5. Maybe I'll review this one someday, by the way. The Mayor Bruce Wayne story looks like it'd be pretty fucking ridiculous. Back in the actual comic, the Maestro gloats about how he's going to allow America's enemies to set up bases in Santoro and launch a nuclear war on the United States. Remember, this was published during the Cold War. Superman's ready to kick the Maestro's 90-year-old ass, but immediately gets stabbed by his lackey's bayonets. You see, Superman's X-ray vision turned the gemstone into gold kryptonite somehow, rendering him powerless permanently. Lois tries to apologize to Superman for ruining his life, but he tells her to go screw herself. Well, not in those exact words. But remember how I said everything wasn't what it looked like? Everything after Superman was told to X-ray the gemstone was actually a flash forward. Superman didn't really kill anyone or lose his powers. What a ripoff! We flash back to when Superman was told to X-ray the gem, but this time, Lois sneaks off to the Maestro's headquarters. Remembering that moisture interferes with X-rays. Wait, does it? VAP. X-rays travel through water perfectly fine. The human body is 60% water. If X-rays couldn't travel through water, they wouldn't be able to take X-ray images of the body. Neat. Because whoever wrote this believes that X-rays can't travel through water, Lois uses the Maestro's mind-controlling organ to force Superman to remember his parents dying in the Kryptonian explosion so he'll cry. Wait, how does Lois know what the destruction of Krypton looked like? And unless Superman's tears are made of molten lead, this isn't gonna work. Yes, thank you, Holly. Superman starts weeping like me whenever I remember that the age of comics being this stupidly fun is gone forever and replaced with tripe like Watchmen. The Maestro is pissed that his plan has failed, but there's nothing he can do as the rebels storm the base. And here's another thing you wouldn't expect to see in a comic aimed at 10-year-old girls. The line, "These attackers are in the right," and look at that guy getting knocked over the edge to his death. Lois tells Superman she lied about him being a criminal, and the two lead the rebels in destroying the Maestro's base. Lois even gets to beat the shit out of the Maestro by herself. I love seeing evil old farts get assaulted. The Maestro is taken in for interrogation, and his own mind control organ is used on him to make him feel remorse. He reveals that he tried to mentally enslave Superman, but only succeeded in giving Superman amnesia, and there's that cape pouch again. Lois's family is set free, and the narration box says the Maestro and the real General Tigre were taken to prison. But look at how weird the lettering is on the phrase, "Real General Tigre." Almost like it was added in at the last second. Yeah, Tigre's fucking dead. That was her corpse we saw in the Maestro's dungeon earlier. Superman still feels bad about murdering Vargas the sculptor and his whole family, and that's when Lois reveals they're actually alive.
Whoa, Vargas, we love you!
While the Vargases were in prison, Lois snuck in and gave them bags of coins to place over their hearts before being shot so the bullets couldn't penetrate. Hey, anybody see that really bad 90s Anastasia cartoon that used that same plot point? And so we've reached the end of the story. Santoro is free from El Tigre and the Maestro, and Superman flies Lois home. Hey wait, where's Lois's family? Is Superman just leaving them in Santoro with no way home? Surely one of them could ride on his free shoulder and the other two on his back. But that's not the end of the comic. We've still got several pages of old ads. One for an issue of a Monkeys knockoff called The Maniacs, which I'll definitely review at some point, and free tickets to Palisades Park in New Jersey. These were apparently given away in every DC comic from June through October for several years in the 1960s. I can't imagine a modern amusement park being that fucking generous. Here's the letters page. You'll remember in the Josie issue 24 review, I mentioned that these eventually replaced the unreadable short stories comics used to use as a loophole to get a cheaper shipping rate. I doubt many more people read these than read the short stories, but at least the letters page let the readers feel like the artists and writers cared about their thoughts and nitpicks. Gonna have to review that Mrs. Gitzel Piddleson's issue that the letters keep bringing up at some point, and here's an ad for pinups, aka tiny posters. I've always really liked that stock image of a limp-wristed Riddler that these use. It was on the Mego Riddler box as well. Now this one's really interesting. A set of plastic army men, probably the flat ones you'd usually see sold out of comic books, but made into a game with the inclusion of dice and a huge battlefield. Probably cheap cardboard or a plastic tablecloth. This kind of reminds me of that brief period when there was a Star Wars RPG where you were supposed to use the actual toys as the playing pieces. I had the playset of the Coliseum from episode 2, and it came with a rulebook and a 100-sided die. Anybody remember that? And here's Direct Currents, the hype page for DC's other comics. The one where Jimmy Olsen is accused of murdering Clark Kent, and the one where Krypto gets rabies are definitely future review candidates. I think they still make these rubber-coated magnetic bricks shown in the top ad here, and the book of strongman tricks shown in the bottom ad is probably still around in some form as well. Of course, anyone who's seen Beekman's World knows how the tearing a phone book in half trick works. And on the back cover, an ad for a BB gun. I can't imagine the DC of today having the balls to advertise this. Well, that's Lois Lane issue 75. The plot was pretty ridiculous, but that's what I like in old superhero comics. I think American superheroes were at their best during the Silver Age, and it's been a downward spiral ever since. I goofed on this issue a lot, but seriously, I'd take this over Watchmen, One More Day, and I Am Not Starfire anytime. Well, that's our show. See you guys next video.
VAP, you're forgetting something.
Okay. Tell the viewers your announcement, Nobuko.
Hey guys, remember the thing at the end of the Josie number 24 review where Holly, Marine, and I get ambushed by Raven from Teen Titans Go? Of course you do. Well, I'm here to announce that VAP's changed the way that'll be released. Instead of the original serialization idea, it's gonna be a full short. and one with real voice acting too. Not that stupid speech balloon thing VAP used to try to hide her lack of vocal range. Hey, so look forward to the Fake Cartoon Neutralization Squad. Learn the horrible secrets behind the creation of fake cartoons. Watch in terror as the twisted abuser Haruko threatens the lives of innocent real cartoons. And thrill as you discover the FCNS, the covert protectors of the world of cartoons and their secret weapons, the flesh-melting blorp ray, and the deadly monster eggs. Watch as VAP, Marine, and yours truly deliver lethal justice to one of Cartoondom's greatest enemies in the Fake Cartoon Neutralization Squad, coming later this year.